Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shane and Todd's Cloudy Podcast number 442, recorded live October 2nd, 2019. And I can never decide whose name to say first, mine or yours, and I'm always worried about glaming them together.
Well, I mean, we were shod for a while, so, you know.
Yeah, to a lot of people. So speaking of that, so shod, taking two words, jamming them together, that's called a portmanteau. And I was watching a podcast the other day with Stephen Dubner. He was one of the two guys that wrote Freakonomics, and he's got the Freakonomics podcast and all that. And he was talking about how when they first were coming up with the name Freakonomics for the first book, all the different things that they tried. And he's like, I'm a real big fan of making portmanteaus. It's just something that I do. I enjoy it. So he was trying to find that way, which is what Freakonomics is. But he's like, I do this all the time. He's like, I've got this great example. He's like, have you ever ran into somebody that you used to date, but now they're married, and you find out that you were the last person that they dated before they got married? He's like, there should be a name for that person. He's like, so I came up with it, penultimore. I'm like, that is that almost might be too clever. That's so penultimate, more penultimore. I'm like, that's some clever stuff. So that's our portmanteaus will never be quite that clever, but
Yeah, but I'm with you. I think he went above. I think he overdid it there. I think he's too clever.
Too smart. Yeah, too smart for his own good. No, the talk that I saw, he was given in front of a bunch of engineers from Google, so they all got it. They thought it was good.
They know what amores are.
Yeah. There are so many jokes, but this is a family podcast, so. For the after hours show, we'll dig into that. So we're doing this. I still haven't published any. I'm probably like 10 podcasts behind. But for production, we can talk about various promotional things we're doing. I've temporarily got a SysKit sign hung up right here. It's been steady for 7-8 minutes now.
Yeah, and folks, just so you know, his basement's not falling off the face of the planet. It's not falling into California. It is, we purposely hung it not level this time.
Purposely. I did it on purpose.
I memean, basically he closes his eyes and he's like, Mah!
I went threw a couple of shots back and blindfolded myself. Yep, that's how that worked. I'm just surprised.
The kid in charge. Yeah. I bet your girls would knock it out. I bet it would be perfect level with sparklies and glitters.
I think glitter is banned in this house, but I think they could not do a worse job. That is true.
Why is glitter banned? I don't know if we've discussed.
Have you ever had glitter in your house?
I mean, I understand the downsides of glitter, but I mean, to flat out ban it?
I don't think you do. Have you ever had glitter in your house?
I have boys, so no.
And then so let me ask another question. That's the same question. Do you have glitter in your house this very second? Because if you have ever had glitter in your house, you still have it in your house. And that's why glitter is banned from this house.
Fair enough. I feel the same way about sand from all those years I spent playing sand volleyball. So I get it. I just, I didn't realize that you could actually, with girls, you could ban it and actually not, end up disowned or something.
Yeah, so Lori is saying she has glitter in a pair of jeans that she wore to my house. She was at my house like 7 years ago, the old house. She picked up glitter from my house 7 years ago and still hasn't gotten it out of the pants that she was wearing. That is how insidious glitter is. And like a little bit of glitter, but when you have girls and they come home from whatever, and it's a project that is nothing but an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with glue on it covered with glitter, so there is like 6 lifetime supply of glitter on this one sheet of paper that comes into your house, it never goes away.
I understand, but I'm really wondering, is the problem? Maybe your example's wrong. I mean, do we need to have an intervention with Lori about using this product called Tide to wash her jeans? I know it was trendy not to wash jeans for a while, so maybe she's done that.
Like a glitter rookie. You would think all of these common approaches to eradicating glitter would work. That's your naivete speaking right there. The only thing that I have found, so I won't even say that. I have found the thing that works the least bad at eradicating glitter is masking tape. So you can't sweep glitter, you can't vacuum glitter, you can't wipe glitter up. None of those things work. It is immune to all of that. The best thing that you can do is every square inch that there's ever glitter anywhere, you can cover it with masking tape and then pull the tape up and hope that the glitter sticks to the tape. That is it. That's the only method that works.
I'm sorry that I hit such a hot button.
That's what we did. We moved. We just, yeah.
Yeah, I my apologies for this traumatic moment I've created in your life.
I need therapy now. It's yep. So in the chat room, Mark Christman saying lint roller. Yeah, that's masking tape on a stick, so that works. Yep. That's what it is. It's masking tape on a stick.
I'm just gonna let that. I'm not even gonna go there. Well played. Well played.
And we have, if I ever produce this podcast, we have the title. So there we go.
Yeah, well, see, I've been thinking about that, right? The fact that we've got like 17 episodes in the can. I think they just need to become the lost episodes, right? We just need to like keep them off to the side somewhere. And
for only the hardcore people.
Yeah, and at some point we'll just produce and we'll just pretend like we never skipped a beat, right? We'll just be like, oh yeah, show 457. This is, coming to you live. I mean, what's unusual? It's been 400 shows.
Yep. The lost episodes. That'll happen right after the After Dark. I wish we could do the After Dark. Goodness, that would be fun.
Yeah, well, based on our conversation earlier about dumb things people say and then they get caught on camera, there's no way we can make our own camera tapes of us saying dumb things.
Yep. So I mentioned the SysKick production thing. I'm also wearing a T-shirt from DigiCert. They are the folks that I use to secure my website. Can you see it? I can't.
You got to go higher. There you go. Now we can see it.
I can only see what I'm sending you. I can't see what you're sending them.
Yeah,
so.
The stupid Todd Clint at the bottom really just blocks out a lot of...
The stupid Todd Clint. I had a doll. And then I'm wearing an Office 365. Shane made me change my shirt right before we went on.
And since Todd changed, I thought I would wear my Sin City Volleyball Champs 2019. I want you guys to know that I am an elite volleyball player. I am the champion. I am the champion.
Or the real champion left that shirt somewhere and you took it. Happened to.
Look at this. He even left me two because I have.
That was very, very considerate.
We apparently, we won the league a whole bunch, and then it takes the guy a while to make the shirts. I'm like, just give us $5. I don't want this T-shirt. I want $5.
Well, it looks like a comfy shirt that looks like it's made out of polyester or something. It looks.
This one's one of those soft cotton ones, but I have a strict no cotton policy, so.
How come?
Because it's a terrible, terrible substance for a T-shirt. I only wear synthetic, like the Under Armour shirts.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wear a lot of those, the polyester ones, but only because they don't feel as good. So if cotton felt good, I don't know.
Cotton is warm, it's hot, it's sweaty, it's itchy. Oh, no, 100% of the time I only wear fancy
fake
shirts.
Things.
Yep.
Well, now that we've covered all of our sponsors, let's get into some tech news. There's actually some good stuff to talk about this week.
We talk about things?
Yeah, tech things. Do you want to kick off with the first one that you put in?
Yeah, so this one's a quick and easy one, but the SharePoint Migration Tool has been out for a while, right? That was Microsoft's kind of answer to helping people fast track their way into Office 365. One of the big complaints is it was only focused at SharePoint 2013. So now they have went back and put into public preview a SharePoint 2010 capabilities as well. So,
yeah.
I obviously haven't tried it. And really what I wanted to do is kind of have like a moment of silence for the poor engineer who had to go back and write code against a product that is 10 years old at this point, right? Because it came out in October of 2009. So
the first preview came out at the SharePoint conference 10 years ago in October, yeah.
Yeah, so imagine that, having to go back, can we write some 10-year-old code here?
And it was this week too, because I remember I had to leave that SharePoint conference early because my daughter's birthday, which is the 6th, was the last day. So yeah, it was 10 years ago, maybe today that they.
Well, we're just gonna say it was today. I mean, declared. Who's gonna fact check us?
Nobody can prove otherwise.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought that was worth mentioning. If you did still have 2010 on-prem, the SharePoint Migration Tool is now in public preview to help you get out of that and get to the cloud where the rest of the world is.
Or if your public-facing website is on SharePoint 2010.
Your public-facing website is going to be on SharePoint 2010 until the end of time, I assume.
I don't know why I would change. Part of SharePoint, Microsoft's tool does file shares. Does SharePoint 2013 and now 2010. It's odd that it doesn't do 2019 or 2016, but I suppose, there's some, but it's odd to me that 2010 made it in before 2016 did. I don't know. But that's good. I'm doing a lot of migrations now. And for most of the migrations that I've done over the last couple of years, it hasn't been from SharePoint to SharePoint Online. It's been from something else to SharePoint Online. I'm doing two migrations right now. One of them is from file shares to SharePoint Online, and the other one is from some back-end data thing that I've never heard of before. And I've done 2 of those where it was coming out of a system that I'd never heard of before this exercise. And so that's, I mean, there's I heard a thing. I was talking to Mike Fitzmaurice, 10, 12 years ago about Office 365. And he said, part of the reason, not all of it, but part of the reason that Microsoft is emphasizing Office 365, and he said this again 10 years ago, was that everybody that was going to buy SharePoint on-prem had bought it. Yep. The market was stuck. And so now they needed to make it accessible to other people. And so I think we're at the same spot now with migrations. Everybody that's going to migrate off of on-prem SharePoint has probably migrated. So now it's, the file shares, it's these other things.
I don't know. I would say that there's a decent amount of people that in the last couple of years I've helped move to SharePoint 2016 that they knew that was their last, right? They wanted to do one more. And so... Yep.
I've done that too, yeah.
Yeah, so we got probably another... Maybe that's why SharePoint 2016 is lower on the list. Microsoft knows that those people that just moved there have got a couple more years before they're going to make the jump. But most of them felt like that move was... They made that move appreciating that they were most likely going to go to online the next time. And that was how I got a lot of them to make some better decisions. I'm like, if you do it this way, moving later will be easier. So,
yeah, that's true. I did do a 2010 to 2019 migration this year.
Yeah. Oh, I don't tell anyone. I've literally never seen or touched SharePoint 2019. Not once.
Yep. In the chat room, Daniel Christian's asking about something else to SharePoint. Can I give an example? I don't know. Trying to think of the 2 things that I've come from. I'm not sure if I want to name them because they might be industry specific, and I haven't gotten permission from the client to do this. But with both of the 2 different systems that I used, SharePoint or any of the SharePoint tools could not connect directly to them. So what I ended up doing was each of those 2 systems had an export of some type, and it dumped out all of the documents and then a big file with metadata about the documents. And then what I did is I wrote PowerShell to take that metadata and turn it into a spreadsheet that ShareGate could then use to import into SharePoint. So I did that with two different CMS systems that I'd never heard of again before all this. So getting it out into my file system, then I can do whatever with it.
It's always crazy when you come across these things. People are like, oh, I'm using blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I've never heard of that. So
yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say it's trash.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of either of these 2. And so we had to quote the project out. So they're like, well, how much is it going to cost to migrate out of, Acme CMS to SharePoint? I'm like, well, first I have to figure out if Acme CMS is a real thing or if you're just screwing with me. It's like the brown M&Ms thing. If you're just seeing if I'm reading the RFQ. So yeah, I had to go find the schema for all the stuff, and it's been fun. I've learned a ton of PowerShell in the last 6 months, dealing with all of these different, having to chew data up and spit it out different ways. I've learned a ton of fun stuff.
Yeah, I've only used PowerShell twice in the last 6 months. I'm kind of jealous. Yeah,
so Eric is mentioning in the chat room spreadsheet to ShareGate. Yeah, so ShareGate is a pretty good tool, and specifically what I was using is ShareGate has an option. You can go SharePoint to SharePoint or whatever, but it has a copy from file share option. And the copy from file share option, you can literally just point it at a folder, and it will spit all those files up to SharePoint. But you can also give it an Excel file, CSV or XLSX, that has source, destination, and then any of the metadata fields that you want to populate. So that's essentially what I did. Was I took the output from one of these CMS things, churned through that, and then turned it into the CSV file. So then in ShareGate, copy from file share, import from file. You can do that with PowerShell also. It's copy content, I think, is the commandlet.
Yeah, and remember I wrote that PowerShell script that people still occasionally buy that does all of that weird, crazy processing.
I've thought about that a couple of times if that would have been, I mean, with this data, maybe not, but I need to revisit that. I'm curious, the PNP's come a long way in the couple of years since you've written that. So I'm curious. I kind of want to take a look at that and maybe rev it up and see if it can be improved.
Yeah, definitely, I'm sure, right? Because there was several places in there, like in the code notes, it says, this is to work around this PNP bug or this PNP poor behavior. So yeah, I'm certain they've probably overcome all of those at this point.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So I've enjoyed all that. But yeah, if you've got SharePoint 2010 on-prem, you can now use Microsoft's free tool to migrate up to Office 365.
Yes. All right. Are we going to B, or should we skip B and maybe we go down to, I don't know, D?
Yeah, if you've got some stuff in there.
Well, yeah. So I just want to kind of point out, every month I write articles for Petri.com on everything you need to know about Office 365 or SharePoint, and so I just kind of it's always good for me as much as I don't enjoy it, because I have to go and read a bunch of the news and try and kind of distill out the information and figure out what people care about, what they don't. I think my favorite one this month was actually the PowerPoint Presenter Coach. So what Microsoft has done, in PowerPoint, you can go in there and you can rehearse your presentation, right? That's been a thing for a long time.
Yep.
But now with the PowerPoint 365, you can bolt in the AI module that will listen to you practice, and it'll then tell you things like, did you say anything that was insensitive? How was your pacing? Were you only reading the slides? And so it kind of gives you some real feedback without having to wait on a human to do it. So I thought that was a pretty nice little addition, and that's a good use. A lot of people do a really crappy job of presenting PowerPoint, and PowerPoint gets a bad reputation for it. So go use the Presenter Coach, and it'll help you maybe not be so bad at it.
I've got to deliver some training to a customer next week. I might run through that a little bit just to see what it's like.
Yeah, it would be interesting, right? And it's really tough, right? I mean, I've studied PowerPoint a little bit, like the presentations and things like that, and how you're supposed to do them. And there's a bunch of different schools of thought, so there's really no right way.
Yeah.
But, I think one of the things I have always taken as a truth is, whatever you put on the slide is basically competing. You're competing with that for the people's attention, right? Are they reading your words? Yep. Or are they listening to you? And so, it's tough. I did try to do one of those PowerPoints one time where it was all pictures, tell the story, but, and then just let the pictures reinforce it. But that just felt weird to me. I didn't like it at all. I am guilty of basically on a lot of my PowerPoints for training classes, literally just writing the exact crap I say. I'm not reading the slides, people. I just took what I said and wrote it on the slides. So you kind of had I took notes for you basically on the PowerPoints, which is completely wrong as well, but there's so many different ways. So this AI tool, I'm guessing it would be helpful, but at the same time, I think you have to, take it with a grain of salt and make sure that it's not judging you on something that you've decided you're doing on purpose. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time I spoke at Tech Ed, they had a speaking coach there. So I went and spoke for him, and he just eviscerated me. He was just, oh my goodness, I probably left that room bawling. And that's after me speaking for about 5 minutes. And one of the things that he said that's always stuck with me, even though I don't agree with it, but I want to agree with it, he said something to the effect of good slides make bad notes and good notes make bad slides. Like your slides should not be notes.
Yep.
But, and again, he told me this, 12 years ago, something like that, 13 years ago. People always want slides, and they want them because they want the notes. They want the things to remember what you talked about. And so I don't know how to do that. So, I mean, I'm with you. I absolutely use the slides as notes these days to remind me of the things to talk about. And then knowing that I'm going to give the class the slides and it's going to remind them the things to look into or ask me about or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, and this is just, once again, not something we plan on talking about, but the whole idea of speaking, right? You have to kind of be your person and deal with that, right? I mean, I remember one of the tech eds, somebody had put out a list of the top 10 things to never do on stage, right? And you and I went and did all of them just to prove that you could do them and not mess up, right? Because that was kind of our thing.
We wanted to be
right? We wanted to be the anti that. And so, I always struggle with this. It's another thing I struggle. A lot of these people, are trying to copy me on YouTube, right? They're trying to recreate the same stuff I'm doing. And they're like, hey, will you help me? And I'm like, sure, I help all of them, right? I'm like, more content out there. The ecosystem grows. I'm good with this. But, every one of them, I'm always trying to figure out, hey, you gotta have some personality, but you gotta be yourself. You're not me. You can't be like, make stupid faces and make dumb noises and wear volleyball t-shirts. You can't do this type of stuff, but you've got to be yourself, because if you're a robot, you ain't going to make it. So.
Well, yeah. And I agree with all that. And I remember when we were at Rookie O at Rackspace, Graham coming in and talking about how, he has us do the StrengthsFinder thing so that you know what you're good at so you can do those things. And that also gave him a list of things that he was bad at, so he wouldn't even really pay attention to them because he knew he was never going to do them very well. It's the same thing. There's a list of things that speakers should do, but if you know you can't do those things and you can't get good enough at those things with a reasonable amount of effort, find what does work for you and make that fit. Yeah.
Yeah, like preparing. I'm incapable of preparing ahead of time, so.
I am very aware of that.
So I just have to embrace it, right?
We do counter each other well in that.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and then it is always tough though, when you get these presenters, like people that like have really great information, like, man, I really want to learn what this person has to say, but I just can't listen to them. So I'm always like with the YouTube people, especially if any of you are aspiring YouTube people, one of the biggest, most important things you need to understand is that the key factor to a good video is the audio quality. Yes. I don't care how good your camera is. I don't care how good your content is. If your audio sucks, no one's going to watch your video. So weirdly enough, to make good videos, you have to have amazing audio. Just weird things like that are unbreakable truths.
Yeah, same for podcasting. Audio is the most important.
Yeah.
And I have absolutely shut off podcasts or YouTube videos that I was deeply interested in because I couldn't stand the audio.
I totally get it.
Yep. So I put a link to the slideshow presenter coach in the chat room.
Very cool. Yeah. Stacy says, I just want demos, not mini slides. So Stacy, you would like the class that I'm almost done writing. So right now I'm writing a Power Apps for SharePoint people class. So it's literally just targeted completely at a SharePoint person and getting them up to speed with the ways they can use Power Apps to make their lives better. Anyway, in that one, module or lesson 2 and lesson 3, which is 97% of the class, there is 100% demo. There's not a single slide. Because I point out in the first module, like, look, I hate slides too, but I got to show you these 10 slides to get you some foundational knowledge. I'm sorry, there's no way not to teach this with slides. Then the entire rest of the course is demo. So I completely agree, Stacy.
Yep. And like Daniel says in the chat room, you have to be able to frame those demos with the story, and they have to be coherent. But yeah, demos are good.
Demos are real good. All right. What do you got next?
Well, I do want to talk about the Tesla thing in B.
Then let's do it.
All right. So Shane and I both have Teslas, and a new version of the Tesla software came out this weekend, version 10. And we wanted to talk about that, not necessarily because of it being Tesla, though that it is, but it definitely shows where this industry is going and how they're leveraging it. And so there's a couple of features of that we wanted to talk about. So I'll talk about the not ones first, and then we'll end up with the one that kind of works in. So one of the things that they added was some new video entertainment. So now in my car, well, mine doesn't, but Shane's does, has a Netflix client and a Hulu client and a YouTube client, along with all of the games that they added. The games that are in the car use the steering wheel and all that to play the games. You can also hook up a USB gamepad to your car and play games in your car. And for those of you that haven't seen, the Teslas have a big 17-inch screen in the middle. The S's and the X's have it a portrait, and the 3s have it landscape. And that's where all this content comes in on. So that is pretty cool.
Yeah, and what's really amazing about it, right, because, watching YouTube sounds like, who cares, right? But what's more amazing is that Todd and I bought our cars at one point in time, and none of this existed, right? And then literally last weekend, Elon said, hey, this update's rolling out. And Todd and I ran out there and went, make sure the car got as close to the Wi-Fi access points as possible. Our cars downloaded, I think it was 1.8 gig update, and completely rev. We went from so I had version 8 originally. I went from 8 to 9, and now we went from 9 to version 10.
Yeah, my car originally had 8, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a completely rework of the car, just sitting in my garage. No trip to the dealer, no nothing. We just sat out there and like, I got the update, it's downloading, yeah!
Yeah, and I always amaze people with the fact that I've owned my car for over a year. It does more things now than it did when I bought it. It has features now that it didn't have. And so a lot of people, so I get all giddy and talk about my Tesla, and I'm one of those terrible, obnoxious, annoying Tesla owners.
Yes.
And people are like, well, that doesn't seem safe. What good is it? Why do you want games and stuff in your car? Why aren't they focusing on this, and this? The reason that all that entertainment stuff is in there is not because they can, not because they want to show off, but because with cars like ours, you sit at charging stations. And all of these games and the Netflix and the YouTube is all for you to use while you're sitting at the charging station to keep you occupied. And so that's why that's there. And Shane and I have talked about that. We don't go to the gas station anymore. And honestly, I don't spend a lot of time charging. It only ever comes up when I'm road tripping. But it's nice that when I'm doing that, you can be entertained.
Yeah, well, I'll take it one step further, right? Because this is kind of where we're headed anyway. But one of the things about the Tesla, right, is they're trying to do things completely different than the rest of the world. So they're always beta testing new things, right? Because the end goal of the Teslas are that the car, I get in the morning and it just takes me to work, right? I don't do nothing. I don't even get behind the steering wheel. I just get in the car, say take me to work, and it goes. And so once they get to that point, then I will want to be able to, while the car is driving me down the highway, I want to be able to watch videos and play games and things. So really they're being kind of proactive, right? They're doing it for us to charge today, but it's really about starting to build this in-car entertainment system so that in the future when all of our cars just take us from point A to point B, they've already got all these years ahead of everyone else on having devices in the car and letting people do these type of things. So it's really, it's like a win-win for them. And to a point that Todd's going to make here in a minute, they're beta testing. Todd and I are paying money for the privilege of helping them make this software better. So when it comes mainstream later, the whole world has it. Todd and I paid to make it better.
Yeah. And so then, one of the questions might be, why do they have it now? Why don't they wait and put all this distracting stuff in? So first off, let's be clear. All of the video entertainment, Netflix, YouTube, all that only works if the car is in park. You can't watch YouTube videos while you're going down the road. The games, I think, also only work in park.
Correct.
I've never tried to run a game not in park.
The games even turn off the other screen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They shut off the instrument panel. That's true. So you can't, But the other point is, like Shane said, once the cars become more autonomous, they may light that stuff up. But they're trying to figure out the problems with it now. And I remember listening to a podcast about drones a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And one of the people on the podcast was complaining about how the laws haven't kept up with drones. My neighbor can fly a drone outside my window. Why isn't that illegal? My neighbor can do this way. And the other person in the podcast made a great point. You can't make up a law or a rule about something until it's there. So they aren't going to be able to figure out the problems with having all this in-car entertainment until it's actually in the car and entertaining people. So they can't spring it on us after that. So that's another part of the thing is they're trying to figure this out now. What are the problems? What kind of laws are we going to have about it? So yeah, it's pretty smart.
Yeah. And to that point, there was one, what's the feature that we really cared the most about, right? There's one in here that's like, I say game changing, right? From the standpoint of where it's taking us.
Yeah. So the Teslas for a long time have had this feature called Summon. And Summon would basically take your car in a straight line, forward or backward. So I've used it before to park my car in my garage. My car's parked in the driveway. I summon it. It pulls in. It can see the garage. It can see my wife's car. It pulls in. It stops. You can use it to back the car out of a parking spot, but it was always only just in a straight line. And you had to be within like 20 foot of the car. So the feature that I have just been salivating about for several months now that came out with V10 is an extension of that, but now it's called Smart Summons. And now with my car, if I'm standing in a corner of a parking lot with my phone, I can tell the car to drive through the parking lot by itself and come pick me up. And this absolutely is not science fiction. I've done it myself 4 times now. I've used it since Saturday, and it absolutely works exactly like that. And it is just the craziest, most amazing thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I did it last night, right? So I'm with Todd. I've tried it. So I was at the school parking lot. I said, come to me. And it backed out of the spot. Whoop. It then drove around the lane, went around the curve, and pulled up to the curb right to my location. It was like there was a person in there driving it, but it's just me. It was crazy.
Yeah. So so I got the update last Friday night or Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. And so after it got done, my son and I went to the grocery store that's like a mile away, and I parked just because of what we were doing. I parked by the door, and they've got like a glass recycling thing. Parked by the door. My son and I walked across the parking lot, threw the glass in there, and did the same thing. Hit the phone. It's got a button that says "Come to me." Car backs out, drives down just same thing. My wife and I went to a movie that night. I parked as far away as I could. There's a range that Come to Me works. Parked as far away as I could from the door. And when the movie got out, it was a little cold. Hit the Come to Me. We could look across the parking lot, see the car's lights light up, and sure enough, it pulls through. Now that was a fun one. And what brings this into the computer thing, and the reason that Shane and I really want to talk about it, is because this is all AI based. This is all learning based. And so to Shane's point that he made a few minutes ago, we are paying to troubleshoot all of this and to give Tesla more information so this gets better. And so the car's got 8 cameras around it, and it uses those cameras to figure out how to come to me, essentially. So it pulled through the parking lot, it pulled through a spot, and then it came around, and it saw where I was, and it saw where it wanted to go. So it tried to go in there, found that there was a car on the other side that it couldn't see, so it stopped, backed up, turned itself around, and came at me from another angle. It's some amazing technology.
It really is. And then once again, to the point we were making earlier, right? Todd and I paid extra for this feature so that we could beta test this, right? It's in beta. Stacy's asking in the chat room, what if it drives into a tree? Who's in charge or who's responsible for that? Well, I am, because we're still technically driving the car. It just happens to be we're driving it by holding our finger on a button on the app, but we're still completely responsible for it. But what's happening now is, instead of 10 guys or 20 engineers beta testing this in, their fake parking lots, they've now got 100,000 plus people beta testing this, because behind the scenes, Tesla's always grabbing all the footage, all the recordings. They knows what's going on. So if something weird happens, they'd be like, hey, why'd this guy shut it off all of a sudden? Oh, crap, There was a cart there we didn't see. We need to figure out why the cart flying across the lot wasn't in the camera. So a lot of that type of stuff is happening right now. So once again, we're feeding the beast, making this all get better, faster for them.
Yeah, and a few podcasts back when Azure released all of its machine learning, you talked about that and training it with the cows and all that. That is exactly what we're doing. We are, and I don't mean that. I mean, we are literally doing that. We are, like the example that Shane talked about. So in the theater thing, when the car backed out and came back around, there was some people that had come out since I started, because the car goes very slowly. It tops out at 5 miles an hour coming across the parking lot. So some people came around, and I didn't want to freak them out, so I killed it then. So every one of those events where somebody kills it before it completes, that generates an event to Tesla. Like Shane said, they take all the information, and like you said, they're like, okay, there's a cart here, or there's a situation here, and that's how they're training this AI. So it will only get better as we use it more.
Yeah.
It's
and that's where, for better or for worse, right? This is where Tesla is crushing all the other manufacturers, right? They're all like, oh, we're researching self-driving too, blah, blah, blah. Or, a Cadillac put out that Super Cruise thing. They quit talking about that real fast. But, Tesla's got, I forget, it's over 1 billion miles of recorded footage of people letting the car drive itself, right? And that's how the fact that my car can literally drive itself from here to St. Louis without me doing anything, which is absurd and crazy and amazing all at the same time. But, it's that data set. It's that 1 billion miles of previous knowledge that they've put into the system. And so, if you look at someone like when Ford releases theirs, right, they're not going to release it until it's perfect, right? Because who would ever have beta testing other than crazy Tesla? But then they're at mile 0 at that point, or maybe they're at mile 10,000, right? But they all of a sudden have got to catch up 1 billion miles of driving to understand and to make these things. So it is just absurd, this concept of, getting people to beta test for you and starting to capture all this data. And I don't know how much you guys study like businesses and economics and all that, but basically data is king right now, right? Data is the most valuable asset that just about any company has. Tesla's got a whole bunch of it. So
yeah, data, and then figuring out where the nuggets are inside of that data. And Tesla's done a good job with that also. So the smart summon thing, it's kind of a trick right now. It is absolutely the go-to trick when you're trying to impress somebody with your car. If somebody's curious about a Tesla, you show them the stuff, and then you have it drive itself. But it's getting, and I was telling somebody when I was talking about the different things that I did, there is as much me learning how to use the car with smart summons through the parking lot as it is people learning that happens. Like I've deliberately not had the car drive itself around any people, because I can just see it freaking them the hell out. Like if I just walk in, through the McDonald's parking lot, if I was a normal person and not obsessed with this kind of stuff, and a car drove by with nobody in the seat, and I had my kids with me, I'd freak out like this. So there's, everybody involved with this. The car's got to learn. I got to learn. The people around it got to learn. It's, yeah.
Well, that's another interesting thing I've found, right? My kids are not impressed by any of this. They're like, oh, big deal, the car drove to us, right? Because my kids, for as long as they can remember, have known that the car can drive itself. So like, so who cares, right? Whereas when you show it to my parents, it's like, they're like, who's in there? You got like a person hiding under the steering wheel, right?
It's like the old Knight Rider TV show, yep.
Yeah, right. They are convinced that I'm pulling the wool over their eyes. So that's another thing, and to your point of everyone's got to learn, right? The generational differences between people that are like, oh, it's just normal that you can press a button and your car comes to you, right? My kid's like, duh. But then, the other people that are like, what?
Yeah, I think my kids, they know that it's not a big deal, but they also know that it's not common. Like they recognize that daddy's car does stuff that the average car doesn't do.
My kids are, my oldest, right, he's a boy, so he's super into cars now. So he understands that, but like the first time I showed him, he literally just was like, meh, right? I mean, it wasn't, like, I wanted to do it. I was excited. Like, I want to see this happen. The kid's like, meh, it works. Duh. I mean, why wouldn't the car drive itself?
Yeah. That would hold it back. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So, and I'm sure everybody will catch up eventually. And this is the future, but it is pretty cool. And I know one of the things that they've been talking about for years now is the opposite of this, where if I'm at a store, I get out at the front door, and instead of the come to me button, there'll be a go park yourself button, and the car will just drive off and find a parking spot. And, I'm looking forward to that one too. So Stacy, they're talking about fart mode. So the Teslas have what do they call it? Exhaust testing or something. But one of the Easter eggs in the car is it has a fart mode where it's a whoopee cushion, and it uses the speakers, and it makes it sound like the whoopee cushion's going off for the different seats in the car. And yes, my kids, and my oldest two kids are girls. They and their friends could sit in my car for hours making the car fart and just never getting tired of it. They just love it.
Yep. Yeah, and there's probably, Tesla overdid it, right? There's probably 40 different fart sounds. There's different, and they're categorized. There's
yeah.
Well, it's almost inappropriate to talk about in here, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then what Todd was kind of pointing out there is you can adjust so it sounds like it comes out of different seats. So you can make it like, oh, Lukey farted, and then you can move Mommy farted, and so there's, you can do it by push button. You can turn it on so it just goes every time you use the turn signal. So then that way you're just driving down the road, you hit the turn signal and it goes. Yeah, this is a well done feature that kids just die for.
Yeah, and I thought having girls that there would be less emphasis on that, and I was absolutely incorrect. I just, yeah. And so my middle daughter, she's 9, and she was showing it to some of her friends, and they thought it was the most hilarious thing ever. And so then one girl was in the car and did, the thing. And then the parents come up and they're like, all right, you got to go. And she jumps out and she's like, Penny's dad's car farts. And it's just, and the parents are like, what? And I'm like, like, this is not. Oh. Yeah.
So it's soccer. We've probably had to do the demos about 20 times, right? And the X, as we've talked about before, does the whole, it dances, right? It does the Christmas song. And
yep.
Yeah. So we have spent countless hours showing this to soccer kids and their families.
It's pretty crazy. Well, I think enough about that. We did want to mention one more thing. Today, kind of before this, not necessarily competing with this, Microsoft had a Surface event, and they released a bunch of new Surface devices. Haven't had a lot of time to read up on them, but I did have a couple of notes. They are releasing revs of all the different Surface products, from what I can tell. Surface Laptop 3 is coming out. The next Surface Pro, Surface Pro 7, I think. A couple of highlights from that. They are moving over to USB-C connectors. They're still going to have a USB-A connector, it looks like, and the proprietary Surface connector, but they've got USB-Cs on everything. I've got a Surface Go, and it has a USB-C, and I think before today it was the only Surface device that had a USB-C jack on it. And I use that all the time. So I'm glad to see the 3 and the Pro are getting it. And I think the laptop is, they've got a bunch of AMD processors under the hood now, which I think is kind of a new thing.
Yeah, it looked like the 13-inch laptop is going to continue to be Intel, and the 15-inch is going to be a new AMD Ryzen Surface Edition chip.
Yeah.
So pretty nice little change there, maybe. I also thought it was interesting, right? So I'm an owner of the laptop too, and I've told a lot of people, right? I mean, I love it. It's an amazing piece of hardware. It turns out that they said that it's the highest rated laptop in its class or whatever. So it went off and crushed I wasn't the only happy consumer with that. How about that?
Yeah, so my daily driver laptop is a 15-inch HP Spectre, and I think the only thing that the Surface Laptop 3 doesn't have that I would want is I fold it back sometimes when I'm traveling, and the Surface Laptop does not have the hinge that goes all the way back. But they've got enough now. You can get the Surface Laptop 3, the 15-inch one, I think, with 32 gig of RAM, which seems ridiculous. Like that's I need to run VMs level RAM, and I don't think anybody does that anymore.
Oh, see, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think a daily driver, I mean, so when I bought the Super PC here, right, he was 32 gigs RAM, and it's not hard to use all of them.
Yeah, mine is the same way. I'm using 15 out of 32 right now.
Yeah, I just think if I was going to use a laptop for a daily driver, I would absolutely buy 32 gigs.
Yeah.
It cost $1 million, but.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just the displays are great. The processors are fast. You can have a 1 terabyte SSD, 32 gig of RAM, USB-C finally. So, yeah, it's when the Surface Laptops 3s come out, I might give them a look.
Yeah. Well, it looks like there is the Surface Neo. So it's got a screen down on the keyboard, which seems dumb and stupid, but.
Oh, that's right. They were talking about how they're going to have the split screen Windows 10. Yeah.
Right. I mean, because Apple tried that with that touch bar on the top of the keyboard, right? And the fanboys loved it, but the rest of the world's like, why would I use that? And it turns out none of the fanboys even use it. So I think that's another one of those features.
So in the Surface Duo phone, yeah, boy, a lot of stuff happened when we were online. So check out the Surface events. I know I go to windowscentral.com and I go to throt.com, and they've both had a bunch of articles today. The embargo was lifted this morning, so they've been publishing stuff hot and heavy. So check that stuff out. The hardware seems pretty good.
I like it.
All right. Do you have any things coming up now that you need to promote?
Not that I'm going to do before this show gets published, so.
Fair enough. True story. Sometimes, so I've been working a lot on page modernization in Office 365, migrating, old classic publishing pages to new stuff. I expect now that I've got one of these big projects done, I'll have some blog posts coming on that. That's been some fun stuff. So hopefully I'll be able to blog some more, and we'll have some fun topics to talk about in coming weeks.
Very cool.
Thanks to everybody in the chat room. We'll stick around for a bit. I know Lori's got a hard stop at the top of the hour, so we need to get wrapped up for that. Maybe since some of the stuff's winding down, I might indulge myself, produce a podcast today. We'll see how that goes. And so Shane, I'll probably see you next week. Everybody else in the chat room, thanks, and we'll see you next week.
Woo-woo.